Fellow televiewers, fellow my people, Ambazonian people, you are welcome to the show. On uh, I would like to specify you're all welcome to the show. Today we will be analyzing the conference, the seminar that was held in Harvard University, and we all know most of the people who know of Harvard. It's a very famous university, and they have a lot of programs that concerns international relations. So today we have some excerpt of a seminar that was held on behalf of the people of Ambazonia, and we of the interim government thought it wise for us to do some analysis, because it's very important when things happen on the behalf of the people of Ambazonia that we try to go through it. You know your story better than any other person, and when somebody recounts your story, you can better explain the story than any other person who is trying to read it or went somewhere and trying to make research about your own crisis. There are many conferences that have been held about the people of Ambazonia, the crisis in southern Cameroon, and so there are some that have some accurate analysis, but there are some that there are some nuances, and we, the people of Ambazonia, have the obligation to do some checks and balances of some facts that we hear. We want to first of all thank those who are doing the analysis. We want those who are holding conferences and seminars on the behalf of the Ambazonian people. We believe those conferences and seminars help to expand on the publicity of the crisis, and that is what we are very thankful. We hope that more universities are going to be holding conferences and seminars and workshops about the crisis. We don't want to talk about the history for now. We want to talk about the prospects for independence recognition. A lot of video out there about the history, how the two countries got their independence, and one in 1960, 1st of January, which was the French Cameroon, and the other one, which is Southern Cameroon, Ambazonia, that had its independence in the 1st of October 1961. So these are two separate countries, and they happen to be given that opportunity to see if they can have a federal system. But we have realized that people don't understand that these are two countries, right? And when they analyze it, they put it in such a way that it is like Southern Cameroon is in Cameroon. No, these are two separate territories, had their separate independence. They had no relationship when they had their independence, okay? The first had their independence in 1960, no relation. Southern Cameroon had their independence in 1961 without La République or Cameroon, French Cameroon in their territory, okay? The only time that is after the independence that the French Cameroon invaded the territory of Southern Cameroon, brought their gendarmes, brought their military, and occupied the land. So people should know that, okay, that this is a crisis of occupation. It's not a crisis of, It's not a civil war. It's not rebels or separatists fighting this. Though all those are not the proper appellation when it comes to the crisis of Southern Cameroon. It's a issue of occupation where one country occupied the other. Okay, and when you hear of the 20th May 1972 referendum and how the Cameroon government of Ahijo manipulated the referendum by putting the yes and we question, that is where you understand that the Southern Cameroon people were manipulated. Okay. And that is why we are saying that this coming 20th May, there is 3-day lockdown to tell the international community that our people are still in denial of any relationship with the people of French Cameroon. Okay. And this lockdown is for 3 days, from the 18th of May to the 20th of May. And that 20th of May symbolizes the annexation, the day of annexation. And we are having this lockdown to push back and to tell the international community that we are no more part of this country, because we reaffirm our independence and our recognition. That is why we are calling on the international community to understand the dynamics of the crisis. And if on this same year, 21st century, we are accepting annexation or recolonization, then it is sad, because this is what we call annexation or recolonization. Okay. And we still confirm that the decolonization process was not over. And Southern Cameroon, Ambazonia, is one of those countries that are still under occupation. Okay, and whenever people recount this crisis, they forget to understand certain dynamics. So we are just there to give some corrections, make some amendments on what people are recounting. So I'm gonna play some. We have some excerpt of the lockdown that has been declared by the interim government. So we want to let the people of Ambazonia know that this crisis is still ongoing, and we cannot relent our effort to tell the international community that we are against any form of colonization, any form of anything that can keep us in bondage. My fellow Ambazonians, this is a communique from the interim government of Ambazonia. This is your Undersecretary for Home Affairs, Comrade Fritz Misodi. This communique concerns the 20th May lockdown. The interim government, in collaboration with other groups, has passed this 3-day lockdown from the 18th of May to the 20th of May as the days that we have to lock down in Ambazonia. For the past year, we have joined efforts to emerge stronger from the efforts of the war. We reaffirmed our steadfast commitment to an international process that is free and open, based on adherence to international law, support of rules and norms, and respectful of the sovereignty of the people of Ambazonia. The interim government is requesting 3-day lockdown. We have done this for the past years, and we respect Ambazonians for respecting these days. We thank the refugees, our prisoners of conscience, our fighters, our activists, for respecting the ghost towns, the lockdowns, and also the orders from other groups. The interim government has not only the legal obligation, but has the moral responsibility to put down these laws. The point of lockdown is a refusal to cooperate with unjust laws, policies against the people of Ambazonia. We urge all Ambazonians to respect these 3 days lockdown from the 18th to the 20th of May 2023. Stay home, stockpile food for these 3 days. We have done this for the past 7 years, so we are at the finish line to victory. Let us all remain resilient and respect these 3 days. Please, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Ambazonian, this is our own referendum, and this is our quest for international community to listen to our request for total restoration of our statehood. This conflict has plagued Ambazonia since 2017. La Republic authorities wage a war on Ambazonians. Civil disobedience or ghost towns and lockdowns and passive resistance has always been the tool the people of Ambazonia have used to show support for the struggle. So refusal to obey the demands of the interim government, but instead respect the occupying power, is exactly against the liberation struggle. Today, because of our resistance, the international community is asking Ambazonians to go to the referendum table. Ghost towns and lockdowns occur without resorting to violence or active measures. Its usual purpose is to force concessions from the La Republic government and her occupying forces. Those who believe in the voice of people say we accept the decision as long as it is freely expressed. We are a sovereign nation, but because of that same referendum, the fake referendum of 1972 that Aijo made on the 20th of May, we want to show our resistance. That was controversial, a controversial referendum that was held in 20th of May 1972. We will resist. We are not fighting our people. We are fighting the occupying forces. So our people, please, let's respect this 3-day lockdown. We will explore all opportunities to expand our collaboration on information sharing related to uncontrolled disobedience in our own territory. So we condemn any effort aimed at unwanted measures to slow down our opportunities. We recognize that some stakeholders may have concerns about either negotiation or referendum, but this lockdown is as an opposition to the fake and controversial referendum that was held in 20th of May 1972 by Aijo government that claimed that we were united with the Republic of Cameroon. So we are in total resistance against this fake referendum that happened. So this lockdown is as a result of that fake referendum that happened. And so the interim government reiterated the sovereign right of Ambazonian people to strong resource management, including the responsibility to deter, to prevent, to detect, and to disrupt those who seek to evade or facilitate the ongoing war, such as blacklegs and enablers. Those who disrespect our laws and our land is against our struggle. We also acknowledge our role in safeguarding our citizens against these blacklegs and enablers. And we hope that we are going to fight till our people are free. Today, the interim government reaffirmed the importance of other groups and partnerships in addressing complex homeland and national security challenges in Ambazonia in this crisis. Our history of cooperation with other groups, our shared values towards the revolution, and our enduring collaboration with other groups provide solid foundation to face the challenges and the opportunities of the crisis together. We remain committed to building on this past cooperation and together pledge the commitment made by President Chris Ano for a united Ambazonia, and long live the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, short live the war. Thank you very much. Thank you. That was an excerpt of the communique of the lockdown that the interim government made against the 20th May, the upcoming 20th May celebration that is always celebrated, whereas that 20th May stands for the day of an annexation. So the people of Ambazonians don't celebrate that day because it's a day, it only reminds us of our annexation. So we always respect that day as a day of protest, a day of peaceful lockdown. And the people of Ambazonians have always done that in the past 7 years. And we continue to respect that, and we thank all those who are always respecting that day. Now, let's talk about the seminar that was held in... I will play an excerpt of some questions and we'll come back to it.
And I will be delighted to take your questions both in English and in French. We can, I can translate any questions that we have in French.
Thank you, Suzanne. I mean, I can't tell you how instructive and informative this was for me. The details of this, you get the broad strokes when you're not directly involved in a conflict such as this, but thank you for exploring all the nuances and articulating them in such an easy to understand way. I know that that's hard to do. So thank you so much. And we have many questions, and of course, as I predicted, we probably won't be able to get to all of them. And I first want to say, for the people who have asked the questions, if I mess up your name, I'm going to apologize in advance. The first question that I have, Suzanne, is from Dennis Atemkeng. What are the principles of the UN Charter that underlie our proposals for a solution?
Yes, thank you for that. And that is a name I recognize, so I'm glad you joined us, Mr. Atemkeng. For better or for worse, the UN Charter doesn't say a lot about internal conflicts. In fact, it explicitly says that the UN is not to meddle in issues that are the what's the language? The essential purview of the state or something like that are internal issues. Now, if you believe in a separate Ambazonia, you don't regard it as an internal issue. You don't regard Ambazonia as part of the Republic of Cameroon, and I understand that. But for better or worse, the international community does view it as within the existing borders of Cameroon. So I think in terms of the UN Charter, the pieces that speak to it most are around human rights and peace and security for all. And those were articulated more subsequent to the UN Charter in human rights treaties. So I would probably lean on those more in terms of how people are treated within the internationally recognized state. So I'm sorry, there is not much in the UN Charter. People talk about the principle of self-determination, but that norm was really more live around the end of colonialism. And nowadays, and since the UN Charter, the norm of territorial integrity tends to trump the norm of self-determination. I still think self-determination could be realized potentially in some way, but there's not much in the charter that says, hey, you should get independence.
Suzanne, before I move on, I was curious about how you suggested that maybe the 4th anniversary of the national dialogue would be an opportune time to reflect and to see what was missing, what was good, and all that. Was civil society involved in that national dialogue?
Yeah, I don't think they were invited in terms of, named stakeholder groups. I think it was more, I guess I don't know all that many details of how they were involved, but there were different commissions. I think there were 8 different commissions of the National Dialogue, each led by a number of vice presidents. Some of those came from civil society organizations. And then I think that the door was open for individuals to participate as individuals. So it was more, I guess, more akin to public meetings than stakeholder negotiations or dialogues.
Yeah. All right, thanks. And Remy is just adding a comment here to your explanation, an answer to the previous question. He's saying, but is it not an internal issue because there was no union treaty?
Yeah, I mean, I understand those arguments, and I'm somewhat sympathetic to those arguments that the people of the British Southern Cameroons were somewhat against their will incorporated into Cameroon. It's a bit of a similar argument to the Moro, the Muslim population of the southern Philippines. Mm. They were conquered. The sultanates of the southern Philippines were conquered, well, really not fully, but the Philippines were conquered by the Spanish. And the sultanates of the south never accepted Spanish rule, and they fairly successfully resisted it for hundreds of years. And so when in the Treaty of 1898 that transferred, where Spain sold the Philippines to the US, they argued, well, we were never part of the Spanish Philippines, so we were not legitimately brought under US control, and therefore, we're not legitimately part of the Philippine state. So again, I understand those kinds of arguments, but for better or worse, the international community still views the Philippines as one state and still views Cameroon, including the former British Southern Cameroons, as one state. So I hear and understand the arguments. I'm not stating agreement or disagreement. I'm just saying, so far from what I've seen, that hasn't gained a lot of traction internationally.
Okay, Suzanne, this is an anonymous.
Yes, I want to come in here to talk a little bit about some points that I just get from these discussions of the seminar. The first point I want to make is that the United Nations Charter on this issue should be geared towards self-determination. Okay. Each country that is occupied has the obligation of self-determination. She mentioned about that, and Ambazonian people have the right to have that self-determination, and that is embedded in the Charter of the United Nations. The other point that she made, that most Ambazonians know that we don't have a union treaty with the people of La Republique. We are not part of La Republique. Okay? We are under occupation. So whatever is happening, that is why we understand that because of this occupation, La Republique have made the international community to know that we are part of. Okay? We never gave our names like Northwest and Southwest. The Aijo regime gave that name after the fake referendum of 1972. We never gave name like we are Northwest and Southwest. No. We came into that union, into that fake union, as the Southern Cameroon. We are Southern Cameroon. We were not, the Aijo regime separated Southern Cameroon and put the Northwest and the Southwest. Until date, they are using that demarcation to try to separate us. Another point she made is on the issue of the Ambazonian as an internal part of La Republique. But I want to talk about the national dialogue that failed. The La Republique national dialogue failed because they wanted to make it an internal affair. Okay. We know that the UN Charter has certain nuances because most states are still recognized because they had referendums to stay. So many countries today, even countries like Spain, they have Barcelona still having referendums. Okay, Canada is still having referendums with Quebec because some people don't want to stay within Canada, right? But our case is different. Our case is different because our case is a case of two countries. It's not like region, autonomy, or whatever. No. We had independence separately. Okay? But because of manipulation of what happened, they tend to sum us up with La Republique as one country. You understand? So our specificity is that we were an unequal status with La Republique as a separate country, colonized by the British. Okay, by the British, and that is why we are Anglo-Saxons. We have been colonized by the British. So that argument of this internal affair is what La Republique has been using, that nobody should come and intervene in the internal affair of the La Republique government and the Cameroon is one and indivisible. Their normal discussion that they say one and indivisible. You are one and indivisible how you've created a fake referendum in 1972 and you cancel the federal system. So you dupe us in 1961 to join you in the federal system. Then you dupe us in 1972 to cancel the federal system and put us within your system. Cancelled even the 2-star that was in the flag. There was 2-star, meaning 2 countries. They eliminated the star, and now there is just 1 star. And okay, where is the people of Ambazonia? Where is their identity? Okay, our case is worse than annexation because our identity is not even known within this system now. Okay, they just put us as Northwest and Southwest. Where is our anthem? Where is our flag? Where is our thing that we brought in this union? Nothing. You cannot just eliminate some people's identity like that. Yeah. When we talk of recognition, when we talk of identity, you cannot do that to a people. And Biya himself, when he went to France, he made it clear. They wanted to eliminate, to assimilate all the people of Southern Cameroon, wipe out their identity, wipe out anything any trace that these people existed. But because of the different cultural background, our own way that we were born to speak out. We're not born to be quiet like the French Cameroonians who will sit quiet for 50 years with one president. They cannot go out and protest. 40 years. It's a shame. Very, very shameful. and they are still there waiting. Then the president will hand over to his son. Take another 40 years again. We cannot do that. We cannot be in such a country. Okay. The national dialogue, as she said, it failed because they carried CPGM people and put in a hall. They invited some few federalists there. They went there, and what happened? It failed. That is why the international community proposed Switzerland. The Republic never showed up in Switzerland pre-talks. When the Republic told Switzerland government that they are not interested in the talks, they went and started these so-called Canadian talks. That Canadian talk failed because the Republic did not even accept Canada to come to go to Cameroon. This was around 2 or 3 months ago, where the Canadian government said they want to visit La Republic for the suggested talks. La Republic said no. Probably at the last minute canceled the meeting with the Canadian delegation. Are these the people you want to say you want to go with negotiation with them? My brother, we will work with the international community hand in glove to see in any form, in any way, to hold La Republic accountable. La Republic cannot dodge from the international community. For how long will they dodge negotiation? For how long will they dodge referendum that is organized by the international community? We have learned from the past referendum in 20th of May 1972. We will not have that same referendum. This referendum will be international referendum, not internal referendum like they did. So anything internal will not be accepted. We only accept international things, international organized referendum that organized by the people of Ambazonia and international community to decide on their fate. Yes, that is all what we can accept. Anything short of that will not be tolerated in Ambazonia. Yes, because that's a territory that we decide. It is as simple, right? If a people voted in a referendum that you organize to join your people, it's high time for you to tell that people to do their referendum. Because many countries like Quebec has have about 3 or 4 referenda. Yes. Barcelona in Spain, they call it the Catalan. They have had about 4 referendums too to decide on their Ireland in the UK, they have also had their own referendum. So there are many countries that have had referendum why they are autonomous. But and I don't think our case should be different, because we are separate country. Even it's not like the other countries that are regions. Okay, we had our independence. So the Ambazonia independence is not negotiable. It's not something that will be going and negotiated. Okay, that's why our people should have a say to decide on their fate. Not La Republic should decide, because what they are doing is that they are trying to impose their will on the people of Ambazonia, and that we will not accept. We will not accept that. Yeah, let's continue with the discussion on on the seminar.
Ms. Attendee, and the question is, has any of the conveners ever found any instrument, either in the form of a UN resolution or a treaty of union, which makes the Southern Cameroons and French Cameroon one country?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah, has any of the conveners ever found any instrument, either in the form of a UN resolution or a treaty of union, which makes the Southern Cameroon and French Cameroon one country?
Okay, I think this is harking back to the same argument that the
Sounds like
joining
it.
of the former British Southern Cameroons with La République du Cameroun was never official, it was never agreed, it was never legitimate.
Okay, let's move on to Val Clark, who is asking, is China active here since it has sea access as a mode of greater investment to Africa's interior states? Colonial influence will still socially active, but China's incentives are attractive to many areas of Africa.
Oh yeah, China's very active in Cameroon. China is exercising influence through infrastructure is how I look at it. And the Chinese are very active in development projects in Cameroon as in many other African countries and trying to obtain more influence that way. So yes, they are
there.
influential. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Emmanuel Chebe is asking, are there alternative arrangements under the radar for children to access education? The evolution of this distressing situation is understandable in terms of its history, but is intervention, like the Swiss Foreign Ministry, is intervention welcome? Is there any governmental focus on restoring education so critical for the development of future citizens?
Yes, the parties have been addressing this. On the Ambazonia side, they have set up their own separate schools. Also, some religious actors, there are Catholic schools and other religious schools. The government is still the central government of Cameroon is still trying to operate its public schools. I think back to the Ambazonia side, there has been some loosening. Some of the groups are pulling away from discouraging people to go to the government schools. So it's not all children that are lacking education, and it depends what local area specifically you're talking about. So some kids have gotten back in school, but some still have not. It is really tragic. And with kids not in school, there are all kinds of impacts from that, not just loss of education, but increases in use of drugs and out of wedlock pregnancies and all kinds of things. It's horrible.
Yeah, real tragedy. So Paul Zeeby is asking, the Republic of Cameroon, and it's in quotes, yeah. This is the international noun of the country in English. Saying something else is just propaganda, and it doesn't help to bring all the atrocities to an end.
Okay. So saying something else besides calling it Cameroon?
The Republic of Cameroon.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think perhaps this questioner is saying, like, let's not get hung up on symbolic issues. We have to really address the problems, which, I'm inclined to agree. But there are those who say, hey, if you call the Southern Cameroon, the former British Southern Cameroon, that is legitimizing an illegitimate government. So that's one perspective. And on the other side, if from the perspective of those who advocate the position of the government of Cameroon, calling it Southern Cameroons, calling it Ambazonia, all of that is illegitimate. So that's back to the contested legitimacy. But I am certainly for trying to solve the underlying problems as opposed to getting hung up on symbolic issues. But symbolic issues are very important for many.
And a PS to his question is, don't you think this issue is a constitutional issue and should end up with a constitutional response, including, for example, a constitutional amendment on the form of the state?
Yeah, the form of the state is kind of the big question here. That's the phrase that is used, is what is the form of the state? Will it be unitary? Will it be special status, federalism, et cetera? And so, yes, that is the ultimate core question that should be resolved through, I think, should be resolved through negotiation. And there are other issues as well that have to deal with people's more day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's another anonymous question, Suzanne. What are the conditions for such crises to be discussed at the UN Security Council? I see how the UN always convene whenever crises as such erupts. Sudan, DRC, Ethiopia. Is Cameroon different?
Oh, such a great question. It is so baffling why this has not been on the agenda of the Security Council. And okay, I will acknowledge there was one meeting called an ARIA formula meeting, which is UN speak for, this isn't really a Security Council meeting. It's just kind of a little talk, a little thing. There was, and that was, I think, in early 2019, maybe earlier. But basically, it has not been on the agenda. And the whole thing is baffling, and why this conflict gets so little attention. I have been following with a very heavy heart the recent violence in Sudan, and I could spend more time talking about that. It's an incredibly important issue, and I'm glad that I'm seeing things about it on CNN and in the Washington Post. But at the same time, I'm like, why hasn't Cameroon and this crisis gotten more coverage, and why hasn't the Security Council picked it up? Explanations I've heard are the international community needs Cameroon in the Lake Chad Basin to counter the Boko Haram and Islamic State West Africa Province. So it's part of the counterterrorism drive. Secondly, Cameroon receives and has welcomed refugees from Central African Republic. And so, their international community is sort of grateful for that. Paul Biya's age, at least among Africans, there is a very strong norm of respecting your elders. And so in the African Union, I'm answering a different question, the African Union rather than the UN. But in the African Union, some say, well, he's the sort of great granddaddy of the African leaders. And so, we can't it's not appropriate to challenge him too much. The French have always somewhat protected their former colonies. Those of you who know much about the Rwandan genocide know that at least initially the French were kind of protecting the government that turned out to be pretty complicit in the genocide. So these are some of the explanations I've heard.
Yeah, and Boniface Noyongoya asks, well, you've already addressed the UN, but he's saying, where are the two colonial powers, Great Britain and France, in this?
Yeah. Great Britain has, I think, more or less supported the Swiss effort. I think they're supporting the Canadian effort. France, as I said, tries to keep it on the down low and stick to bilateral relations with the government. That said, I think that they have exerted a bit of pressure on the government, but quietly, pressure to engage in peacemaking. What else? I mean, it's come up in the British Parliament. It's come up in the French Parliament. So to some extent, everybody's sort of at a loss, as to what to do.
Yeah, I will come in here because I've heard some points, especially when it comes to the recent development of the struggle. Those points that she raised, there are some important points, but let me talk about that issue of Treaty of Union. Yes, we had no Treaty of Union with La République. There's no Treaty of Union. Okay? The fake referendum that was held in 1972 was just to what we call assimilate the people of Southern Cameroon into La République du Cameroon. And from what we understood, the referendum was held in a way that it was a local, it was not supervised by the international community. And that is where the problem lies, where you have a question that they ask, we and yes. How can you have a referendum? You don't ask a question, because a referendum should be a question. Do you want to, as an independent country, remain under or remain with in a federal system? That is how the question have to be. It should be between federating as an autonomous state and or stay within or maintain your independence, because it's an independent country. But it should not, when our people join this in this fake referendum, they believe that they will be under this federal system of shared power sharing. In 1961, it was a power sharing plebiscite that was held, where our people voted to, in the plebiscite of a federal system. Then what happened to the federal system? It failed because in 1972, Aijo stopped it, and sole-handedly one president changed it. That is why we are saying that the other point about the China active, yes, we know La Republic and Chinese government are carrying out series of agreements. They are carrying out certain projects now in La Republic to Cameroon, but Ambazonian territory will have a fresh agreement. Any infrastructure agreement, any project that is going on, any developmental project will not be binding, because especially anyone that has to do with Ambazonia will not be binding. We'll sign our new projects, new memorandum of understanding with China, because we don't know the terms of agreement that La Republic is signing with China now. So that one will be null and void. We will not be having agreements that La Republic sign with other countries on our behalf or within our territory, or that has to do with Ambazonian resources. So what I'm saying here is that the agreements will be null and void. We'll have fresh agreements with any country that has to do with La Republic within our territory. These are things that La Republic don't want to come and discuss in a negotiation table. We are still waiting for La Republic. We had the Canada negotiation, we had the other negotiation, right? We know that La Republic government is illegal and illegitimate government occupying the people of Southern Cameroon's land. So the issue of constitutional amendment has very low in terms of what the people of Southern Cameroon want. We are tired of living under corrupt and very corrupt constitutional system, where the French people are very corrupt. And what we call Njumamari that we had, the Njumamari we had with these people for the past 60 years have not worked. And if a marriage is not moving, please don't stay in that house. Leave. Our relationship with La Republic was on an equal status. It was not on that one president will lead for. Aijo led for 22 years. Paul Biana 40 years. But that was not the agreement. That was not the agreement. The agreement was power sharing. I will still mention countries like Canada, where Justin Trudeau is from the minority Quebec. He is the president of Canada now. The agreement of the federal system was that certain department or certain ministries will be held by the Ambazonian government. The Ambazonian had their local government, their House of Chiefs, their own parliament. We were not supposed to dissolve our parliament. That is why the regime is trying to cajole those chiefs there, trying to say that they'll be in charge of the education. But those are just ways to cajole these chiefs to, the other point that she made about is a issue of UN Security Council. Our issue is vetoed by France. France has a veto power. If you know about the veto power, there are 5 countries that has veto power in the United Nations Security Council. Once one country say no, it's off the table. And that is why the UN Security Council has not been ready to welcome our issue. The UN Security Council has the power to pass vetoes. The 5 countries there that have veto power can veto any resolution that want to be brought to the table. And France is there. And as she said, of course, France always protect its former colonial powers, colonial entities, its colonies. So they will not allow anything concerning Cameroon to be tabled in the United Nations Security Council. That is why Ambazonia have no choice than to keep fighting. We just have to keep fighting for our right, self-determination, to get back what belongs to us. The year that probably will want to come to the negotiation table, they will come. You hear her saying about the Swiss and Canada negotiation. That probably is not ready to negotiate. Biya declared war and he said, okay. Our people say, okay, we brought peace plan. We were marching with peace plan. But the La Republic government brought its militaries and occupied the whole of Ambazonia. So that is the situation of the crisis now. And we have no choice than to follow the United Nations resolution and policies of self-determination. That's what we are doing now. And it's our right to defend ourselves, our right to defend our territory. Okay, let's listen to the last excerpt of the discussions.
The British have to some extent supported the Rapid Intervention Battalion, the BIR, that's the French BIR, the French acronym, which is a kind of special forces of the military. And there again, I think the concern of counterterrorism is the reason for that, but that same force has become active in the former British areas and at least allegedly, I'm sure it's true, violated human rights quite a lot. But hey, they're helping us in counterterrorism, so we stay quiet. I think that might be part of it.
That might be part of it, yeah. So John Packer wants to know, from your professional perspective, do you believe the Canadian public announcement of mediation is, number 1, usual, number 2, smart, advisable, number 3, now harmful, not just problematic? Presuming that you agree this was at least problematic, what do you believe it indicates?
Yes, another name I recognize. So glad you're here, John Packer. To my understanding, and what I've heard unofficially from people who probably weren't supposed to talk about this, it was a negotiated rollout. So, yes, I do at least believe it was problematic. There's not a formula. Every peace process is it has to be figured out on its own. There are some lessons across peace processes, but each has to figure out its own path. So I can't say, oh, gee, normally this should be done in month 9 instead of month 3. Like I can't say that for sure. I do think it, in effect, was problematic. I wonder about the Cameroonian negotiating team and how much they were in communication with others within their government as this was happening. Maybe one argument is that it all should have just been still kept confidential, that it just shouldn't have been made public at all. And there are pros and cons to that. My mentor, Anthony Wani St. John, wrote a great book on back channel negotiations in the Middle East, the Israel-Palestine peace process. And, one among his conclusions is that, secrecy is really, really helpful in negotiations, right? To keep it out of the public eye so people can be frank and really dig in to the issues without performing to an audience. But over time, what happened with the talks that led to Oslo and so forth was that the secrecy prevented the ability of parties to build public support for what was being negotiated. And so then you had, Yitzhak Rabin assassinated shortly after as a result, and other, ultimately it all fell apart. So at some point, I think peace processes do need to become public. Was it too soon? Maybe. As I described, I think the problem that we learned last month was on the Cameroon government side, and we need to kind of figure out how to get them back into negotiations. And I think that requires some acknowledgement of how this landed, how these announcements landed. I think that's the best I can do.
Thank you, Suzanne. So this, I'm afraid, is going to have to be the last question, and it's one that's kind of dear to my heart. Negotiation has the potential to help over time if contesting parties could be involved in workshops, perhaps unofficial track 2 type of workshops, and educational, to influence the political parties. Is there any organized prospect for this type of workshop that might introduce methods of collaboration toward peace? I'm assuming perhaps, Suzanne, you do these sorts of workshops.
Well, we haven't we did hold a workshop for sort of the Cameroonians in diaspora and Southern Cameroonians, in diaspora back in late 2019. We're interested in doing more of that sort of thing. And meanwhile, some others have too. Mediators Beyond Borders, USIP has done some workshops. So there are a number of other actors supporting kind of track 2 or back channeling, and we hope to be among those.
No, that would be great. Again, Suzanne, this always happens. We run out of time and we don't cover all the questions, but I'm sure people could, reach out to you if they have any, burning questions.
I welcome that.
Yeah. And I also want to point out that this session is being recorded. So anyone who wants to watch it again or, suggest to other people to view it, please, in about a day or two, check on the Program on Negotiation website under events, and you'll see Suzanne's talk there. And now I want to turn it over to James Kerwin, who is going to give some announcements about other upcoming.
Thank you for that brief seminar. It is very clear that the colonial powers still have influence over their territories. That is why a country like Cameroon, like Republic of Cameroon, is still controlled by France. And they are trying to assimilate us into that same colonial rule. This is post-colonial era, and we can't be kept incommunicado in a kind of post-colonial rule. That is why we want out of this Njomba Marriage, where there is no treaty of union between us. And we see that the international community works in a very tricky way. The issue here is that our people want out of this union. We are tired after 60 years of this relationship. It's tiring. And the last point I want to make is the that she mentioned is the issue of Canada negotiation. La République is not ready for negotiation. Canada negotiation was initiated by La République. They sent their prime minister to go and contact some of the Ambazonian groups and so on and so forth. But when the Canada government say, okay, we are ready to help you in this mediation process, La République back out of the negotiation. What do you expect? Do you trust such a kind of behavior? They did same with the Swiss-led negotiation process, where most of our leaders were already part of it. They left and went and created theirs. Okay. What we understand, some groups were playing into La République games by refusing to attend the negotiation process. They cannot attend because La République is this, La République is that. La République has not sent its consent to join the negotiation process and so on. So these groups had series of complaints that they were giving, like Consortium, the AGOFC, the Akwanga's group. They left the Switzerland negotiation that La République has not shown. What is the problem of you leaving a negotiation just because the La République has not shown its consent, instead of you staying in that negotiation process and pushing La République towards it? Now you left and La République call you guys, some of you guys, for the Canada process. You all rushed to Canada, and they gave their name the Big Four, the Big Four. They went to Canada. What did La République do to them? La République abandoned them there in Canada. The communication minister of La République sent a communique that they did not ask the prime minister to go and start any negotiation process in Canada. That's how it happened, and that is the end of the Canada negotiation. Okay? When President Chris Ano tried to get involved in the process, because the interim government was not part of the process, La République back out. Okay. The issue with the interim government was that Comrade Chris Ano was questioning what happened with the Switzerland negotiation, and also why is it that La République is imposing the topic. You cannot call for negotiation. Negotiation means to discuss issues. You cannot impose topics of discussion. So the interim government said, no, we cannot attend a negotiation that is organized by La République. The topic, we heard that they were saying that they can only talk about the state of the revolution and modalities of the national dialogue and blah, 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 blah. All those were jargons. We said, no, we cannot attend such a meeting that is imposed by La République, sponsored by La République, organized by La République, the topic decided by La République. We said, no, that is not an international organization. Now, what was very important was that the Canadian government got involved with its foreign ministry. That is where La République saw that here. This thing can get serious, eh? La République said they did not start any seminar. This negotiation process was started by the La République government. Yes. That is when things get worse. So those people who are against referendum, negotiation is one option. Referendum is another option. If you can have your way towards that direction, we will follow. But you see how Latvia is caring. Now, the international community is suggesting, proposing as an option for a referendum. Because they have seen the cunning nature of La Republic. And we have also seen the cunning nature of La Republic. Do you think that people will go and sit with you in the negotiation table? When? With the backing of France, you have heard in the discussion, the backing of France, do you think which country will give a call UN security meeting sanctioning La Republic? The only country that has sanctioned La Republic is USA. USA is the only country that has sanctioned La Republic because of their human rights records. Okay. So let's not be blind to this. If we are opting to go towards referendum organized by the international community, it's not because we don't want negotiation. How many years did our leaders wait in Switzerland negotiation? Almost 2 years. That probably never showed up. That probably showed consent. That probably sent its consent to Switzerland, but never attended the Switzerland negotiation. So let's not be carried by these innuendos. Oh, these people don't want negotiation. Oh, these people don't want this. Oh, this. What? We are looking at options that can work. It's not that people don't want this. No. Bring what you have. If you think that you can hold La Republic and put on that negotiation table, okay, we'll be there. President Chris Ano was ready to go to negotiation in Canada. He was ready after the Canadian government sent him an invitation. But when La Republic saw that this Canada that want to mediate this thing like that, they'll bring us problem. They back out. So, well, I'm just saying about the cunning and all these things about La Republic. And thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, and we'll come next time with other issues. Thank you for watching, and don't forget, Ambazonians, we have a lockdown, 18 to 20. No 20 men in Ambazonia. No 20 men in Ambazonia. Thank you, and let's keep fighting for our country. Thank you very much.